Right, we have started. Welcome again, everyone, to our webinar today with Holly Kudo, Jim Augenstein, and Jeff Progolski will be coming on. They are going to be talking about the highlights of the Business Central 2023 Wave release. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat box, and we will answer them as we can, and also have a Q&A if time permits at the end of our webinar. Like I said, this is going to be recorded, and I will send the recording to all of the registrants. And if you'd like the transcript, I can tag that in there too. We will have this on our website and on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to reference back to it, you're more than welcome to do so. So now I'm going to turn it over to Holly first to go ahead and kick off our presentation.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. We are here today to do Wave Report for release number 1 in 2023, and we welcome you to join us today. The reason we're so late with our presentation this time is we did do this live at the customer conference and intend to do that again next year at the customer conference. So if you aren't already signed up for customer conference, this is a great opportunity to jump on the website later today and sign up for next year's conference and join us live for our Wave Report amongst many other great presentations throughout the customer conference. Today presenting with me, I'm Holly Kudo, one of the customer success managers here at Innovia. Been with Innovia for 5 years and in the NAV space for 15 are my two co-presenters, and I'll let them introduce themselves as well.
Thanks, Holly. Hi, everybody. It's Jim Augenstein here. I've been here about 3.5 years now. Been in the channel for about, 25, 30 years, it seems like. And thanks for taking the time to join us here on our Wave release presentation. Jeff.
Here we go. Jeff. Jeff's going to be with us also. He may be still on the train, getting to the station to meet with us. We're going to start out today with application improvements and the functionality around the finance area. We're hoping that when this is recorded, we'll be able to track those different areas. So if you want to watch back and just see finance or operations or technology, you'll be able to fast forward to those sections going forward. So we're going to start with the finance application. So one of the big changes in finance features and functionality in the first wave was the invoice posting policy. This is something that's been talked about and people have asked for and customized in the past. But now if you go to your user setup table and you enter your users on this table, you can also address their policy for posting invoices. So it's sales invoices and purchase invoices, and you can see them marked in the red box there. Those two fields and columns are what are available. And the three options are allowed, prohibited, and mandatory. So what allowed means is it's going to remain the same as it's always been for us. When you go to post a sales order or a purchase order, you get the option of to post ship an invoice, or invoice. And on the purchasing side, purchase, receive, or receive an invoice. So those are the three options. It will remain the same if you set them up as allowed. If you don't set them up at all, they will have just the default as well. If you set them up under prohibited, this would be like your warehouse folks, where you want them to be able to post ship or you want them to be able to post receive, but you would not want them to ever post the actual invoice. So prohibited would mean an employee who's just going to post a shipment or just going to post a receipt, but they won't be posting any of the invoices for you. Then the third one is mandatory, and this would be where you've made a decision that, you know what, we don't need to do them as separate. We're going to do them as one solid function, and we're going to post our shipment and invoice together, and we're going to trust and post our receipt and invoice together. And so mandatory would be the field you would want to fill in for employees that are going to be able to do that, and would do it as one lump process going forward. So great new feature there, both on your purchase and your sales side with purchase orders, returns, warehouse shipments, inventory picks and putaways, and your sales orders returns as well. Intercompany is the next group of improvements. They've really been investing the last few releases in intercompany improvements and changes and updates, making this a much more viable product for our users. So what we're seeing is now we have the intercompany setup. We have an actual action ribbon that consolidates all the different things to set up and that you need to do within your intercompany setups. It has grouped together all your intercompany partners so you can see them there right on the page. It's got your dimensions, so you can click and set up your dimension, your intercompany chart of accounts and mapping. So everything's all right here in a one-stop shop for you going forward with intercompany. So really bringing that all together. Also has a couple of little validation cues over there on the side that are also available to just help you have more visibility to what's going on within the setups. Then intercompany improvements as well. The inbox and out of box is a much smoother process than it was. You're also able to open the inbox documents going forward, which we weren't able to do before. Now you can handle your bank transactions as well on the intercompany journals. So you can add bank transactions as well. And then you'll see we also have now the intercompany role center queues that you can see there with new transactions coming in and out, things that have been rejected or things that are being sent to you. So intercompany, again, really going to be a much more robust process and available to you guys within the Business Central environment. Next one that we're going to talk about is the review of GL accounts. I thought this was a great ad. I, in the past, was on the accounting side and would have to review general ledger accounts to figure out where the error was, and it was a needle in a haystack. So this is something you can utilize. So on each GL account card, you're going to see a new field that has the review policy down on the right-hand side. And you have three options there: none, review allowed, and review allowed and match balance. And so the three different options are: none means you cannot review this account in advance and check things off. So when you go to the review table, which you see to the left on the screen, those entries will not show up here. You won't see them there. It won't allow you to utilize them. Review allowed means that you're allowed to review them, and I can check them off in the review column there. You see the very left column, the little checkbox. That's where it gets marked. So I highlight the row that I'm on that I say, yes, that's the correct entry, and I can select that it's been reviewed, and it will fill in the checkbox. And then I can also set it so it's review allowed, but I must match the balance. So in other words, I can only check off and review things that are check and balance. So I have to have the debits and the credits that match, and it has to balance to zero. And then it will allow me to review and set those that I've reviewed them and check the box. If it's out of balance, it will tell me that I can't do it because I'm out of balance, and I would need to make that correction. So the nice thing about being able to do that in advance, if you're doing your reporting quarterly or annually and you have an error and you need to go back again, you'd be going through all of these transactions to try to figure out in that needle in a haystack what's wrong, which ones caused this problem. If we're reviewing them in advance, weekly or monthly, now I could come to this review table and I have these options that you see on the left that are on the drop down where I can show all entries. I can hide all of the ones I reviewed, which that's the feature that's fabulous. I can hide all the ones that have been reviewed, and the needle in the haystack becomes very small now, and I only need to look at those ones that haven't been checked previously. And I should be able to find that needle real quick then and make the correction I need so that I can move forward with my reporting. So really nice feature here that's been added to your environment to start taking advantage of and getting a good look at. And then the last big one that I wanted to point out was statistical accounts. This is something new as well that we have. So you have statistical accounts that you can set up, and that's on the top right. You just go in and you say new and create a new account, give it a name, and then you can do transactions against that. They are registered transactions, not posted transactions, so they are not financial. They are just registered information on a table in the system that you can use for reporting purposes. Then over on the left-hand side, you'll see there is one of the journals where you can make those entries to get your statistical accounts to have the balances that you're wanting and needing for your reporting processes. And then down at the bottom, you can see those general ledger entries that are happening on an account that we've created. And the ones there are based on some employee counts, so they can use employee accounts on their reporting and on their financials. So you can also add these to your financial reports. So you can see on the right-hand bottom side, I went into the row definitions, and at the very bottom of my net income on my income statement, I can add some rows and I can add in some of these statistical accounts. And now you can see that the type is a statistical account, so it knows that it is not a part of the balance sheet. It's not part of the income statement. It's additional information that I want to report against and to show up on that report for myself. Other items in the financial area with notable mention, just easier to create open balances on the item tracking. Multiple transfers, being able to post at the same time instead of having to do each one at a time. So if you get a truckload of transfers from another location, you're no longer having to sit there and spend half a day posting transfer orders. Previewing the item journals and 20 other journals. So like we do on payment journals and some of the few journals that we're able to already do preview posting, you have that now on 20 other journals to do preview posting and see what that's going to look like before you actually hit the button and post that out. There's some changes to the adjusted rates. So exchange rates have some changed batch built-in reporting for you guys on the rates for those of you using multi-currencies. And then again, just a reminder, financial reporting did replace the account schedules. So when you're looking for those account schedules, it's now marked financial reporting on your financial list of options. And that is it for our finance section. Jim, over to you.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, let me share my screen here. And can you see the notable mentions page that was just opened?
Got it.
Got it. Okay. So, hi everybody. This is Jim again. So I'm going to talk first of all about just a general application improvements. And for me, this is it's all about me area. These are things that you can personalize, or at individual users, you can choose to turn on or turn off. It's not so much about the whole application. It's trying to make my productivity better as I work within the system. And the first thing I want to point out is inside Business Central, there is a page called Feature Management. You can see that there. The feature management is an area where there are some optional features that you can turn on or turn off before Microsoft makes them mandatory. Or you can preview some features that are coming up as well. So you can see here, for example, I'm going to talk about the modern action bar, or I'm going to talk about analysis mode. Right now, this is scheduled to be released in Q4 of 2023. But if I wanted to, I could try it out now and go and play with it. Your system administrator does have to enable some of these, so they may not be available to everyone. And in some cases, it might be regionally not available. For example, we don't do anything with Czechoslovakian VAT reporting here in the States. So it kind of depends. But so the important thing is if the try it out button is available to you, you can go in and try some of these features out. So my first one is switch companies. It's a minor thing, but it really is powerful in saving you mouse clicks. We operate in Canada and the U.S., and so our Business Central environment has both environments. And I'm regularly going into BC and having to look in things in the Canadian environment. So in the past, you had to log out, log back in. Now we have the ability to change quickly our environments. So in the upper corner there, you can see environment sandbox 22 is 22 is the one that I'm working in now. I click on that, and that brings up a context sensitive menu. And in that sensitive menu, all of the companies that I have available to me are listed in addition to the various production environments I might have in my company as well. And like many other fields inside Business Central, this is a searchable text box. So if I were, for example, type in WM, you can see it takes me down to my WMS CC Geno test company, or it shows that one. Not such a big deal when you only have 6 companies, but if you've got more than will fit in the list, it's a nice, easy, fast way to find them. Now, a new feature that was rolled out in this wave release is the ability to open both companies simultaneously. So now you see here, initially we had just the ability to switch or to open a company in a new tab, but this is my favorite, which is to open the company in a new tab and go to the same list. So for example, let's say I was reviewing items and I have multiple companies. And I want to make sure that the same items in company A are in company B. I've got my item list open for company A. I can say open a new tab, go to the same list. It takes me right to my item list in company B, right? So 3 or 4 or 5 mouse clicks saved. The time to open is about the same, but those extra mouse clicks are saved. It's a nice little feature. And then with a note toward the items that we see, the icons that we see at the top of the page, they actually have meaning. So if you're in one company, you're going to have just this Business Central environment, or yours might say something with your company name. It's just a generic company that I had. But if you have multiple companies, you will see this icon here that says, hey, you've got multiple companies. If you are using the company badge, which we highly recommend, you can use that on the company setup page. This helps you identify which page you are, or which company that you're working in. You can assign a 6-character name and a different color. If you have multiple environments, which is the old way of defining databases, then you'll see here that you've got a multiple environment icon and which environment you're working in, as well as multiple environments with a company badge. I've got my company badge and my environment. So I can quickly see where I'm working. For those of you that test features or test transactions, it's really nice to be able to look up there and say, hey, which company am I in? And so once you learn these icons, again, it's just a visual representation of what that looks like. So quick and easy, change into multiple companies. The action bar, the modern action bar, as they're referring to it, is the next one on my list. I love the things that they're doing with this action bar. Again, it's all about my personal productivity, making the system work quickly and easily for me. So the first thing is to note that we have replaced the old item label there, a caption called process. What did process really actually mean? No one really ever knew. So now it's called home. So this is where you may start on any given screen. And with home, it's just a little bit more clear. The next thing is this posting button. You'll notice that this looks a little different than what you may have seen in the past or what you may be operating in now. Notice this little vertical bar here, the split bar and the downward arrow. So now we've got some actions that are possible on this post button. But for us right now, this action is available just by clicking on the word post. So rather than have to open it up like we had to do in the past, and then go down and say, I want to preview post and print, or whichever option that was, it will be immediately available just by clicking on the caption there. And the good news is this is customizable. So if preview posting is what you always want to be able to get to quickly, you can customize that and move the preview post up there instead of post. So this is a useful, quick and easy little feature. Again, mouse clicks. what we're saving. And many of the actionable type of captions have this feature. You'll notice it by the split bar. That's one you do need to turn on in feature management for now. I assume that it'll be rolled out as mandatory here sometime soon. The other thing about the action bar is how we can pin the actions. Note that there's nothing underneath my main menu bar here. I don't have any actions, but now I can choose to pin. So the first thing we do is go into Home. We select Home. Notice over here now, I have the little pin that we're familiar with in other Microsoft products. Once I pin that down, now the next time I open up this page, my action bar will be available to me. Again, so I don't have to save, or I can save the mouse clicks. And here's the good news. This also can now be personalized. So let's say there's an action that you need to perform on a regular basis, and you don't want to have to go into Home, click on the action bar, and then choose the action bar. I want to move it somewhere a little bit more close. So if you have access to personalized mode, you go into Open to Personalize. And once I've opened Personalized, you can see here that I have opened up my menu down to the Get Sales Order option, or the Get Sales Order action if I do a lot of drop shipments. And so once I grab that, I move it up to my regular action bar. And then the next time I open up this page and I've clicked on Home, or if that's where I normally start, then the Get Sales Order action is right there on my action bar. So that's 3 or 4 mouse clicks again that we've saved. And there are other things about the action bar that keep changing, and to me, it's just gotten and getting more and more efficient. I've got my actions on my role center completely tailored, so the 4 things that I need to do on a regular basis are right there on my action bar. I don't ever have to go anywhere else. Okay, my next one is data analysis on lists. This is a feature which is technically still in beta, let's say. So let's say it's still being rolled out, but it's a nice way of reporting on list pages that many of us push out to Excel and then do some analysis, well, right inside Business Central. There's a couple limitations in the current release. It only allows 100,000 rows. And it doesn't have a push to Excel yet automatically, but it's a great start, I think, in ad hoc reporting from ledger pages, which I know we all do on a regular basis, without going to one of the ISV solutions for reporting. So what does this look like? Now, first of all, you do need to turn this on in feature management, all right? And on any list page, you will now see a new button right here, or this is not a button, this is actually a slide. I forget what they call this exactly now, but a slider, and I have to turn that on and slide it over to the analyze mode. Now, what am I in? This is my item ledger entry page. This could work for customer ledger, any of the ledger pages, and it's just, as you know, a listing of all the headers or the documents of the page that I'm viewing. So once I slide that over to analyze, you'll see here that my screen changes, and let me point out a few things about this particular screen. First of all, you can rename these tabs so that your report has meaning. In this case, I've called it the customer sales by month. And you can have multiple tabs across here, and when you load these, all the reports will load for you. So in this case, I only have the one, and what are we looking at? Well, on the right-hand side over here, first of all, very Excel-like, but or report chooser-like. These are all the data fields that exist in the item ledger page. Here you can see I've got some checkbox on some of them, and that's what's in my view here. And then next, we have the row groups. So on the row, I have my customer code and my item number. That's what's populated underneath here. And if I were to open up that caret, you would see the customer number, the order number, and the item that was sold. And the next thing is down here, we are doing some summations. We're summing up the quantity, and we're summing up the dollar amount of the sales. And you can see that here. All right. And then I wanted to point something out that they've done is they're already calculating posting date, year, quarter, and month. So that's not in my normal ledger entry view. But Microsoft has added that calculation for us, again, to make the reporting process just that much easier. So in this case, I've checked on posting date month. All right. Now you'll also note up here on the page, at the top of the page, you have pivot mode. So now I can turn this into a pivot table. So you can see here by customer, I had 29 entries for this particular customer. The sum of quantity here is we had 43 orders and $0 amount. That's just a blank customer. But you can see here for January, February, March, and so on, that now I have a pivot table representation of the reporting that I would like. And this morning when we were chatting about the preparation for the webinar today, Holly and I were talking about those statistical accounts. And I know that one of the things that I have in my past life, when I was actually using the system, we had really wanted the statistical accounts because our corporate parent wanted a report by headcount, by department. And so we've never had that. So, and Holly said, yeah, that would be useful if you could perhaps know the number of sales orders in a month, and by sales order, what was the average dollar amount. So with the statistical accounts, now we can capture that, and I could do a quick analysis view here to give me a pivot table of the number of sales orders in a month. And now very quickly I can get those numbers and do my post the number of sales orders that we had in a given month. So how we're going to end up ultimately using all of these, don't know. There's lots of great things you could do. Customer aging, so just the possibilities are endless. But it's really nice to see that we're getting this inside the application. I'm hoping that we'll get a push to Excel sometime soon, and a few other nice little features to be great. But this is a good first start, I think, for this particular process. Now, I never want to talk about bugs, but in this particular case, if you start to use this, I do want to point out that there is one little minor issue, which we've reported and is being worked on. For whatever reason, the posting dates change by 1 day. So if you've got something that goes over a month, at the month end, if it's the 30th of the month and the next day is the 1st, transactions from the 1st get pulled into the 30th. So it is in beta. We did report it, and I'm certain that we'll see a fix very, very quickly. Over here on the right-hand side too, let me make this just a little bit larger. Over here, you can see analysis filters. There is also the possibility of doing additional filters. I did not get this into my screenshots today, but you can put filters on here as well if you wanted to filter the data in addition to what we had. But for now, I just wanted to point out the basics. Turn that on in feature management, play around with it, and tell them what you think. Later on, Jeff's going to point out an area where you can submit suggestions. If this is interesting to you, make sure you try it and submit some suggestions to that website that Jeff will mention. Okay, so that's kind of general feature application improvements. And again, we choose these. We kind of pick our favorites. There are many more, but those are kind of the top ones in general. If those of you that may have met me before know that warehousing and production are kind of my favorite areas, and so I get to cover what I call the operations area next. And some really nice things happening in warehousing in this particular release. So we'll start with something that we have been asking for a long time. I don't have time today to go into a deep conversation around warehousing, but warehousing has multiple levels. There's multiple complexities levels that you can turn on or turn off depending on what you turn on in the location. We are seeing that the advanced warehouse features are being moved down into less complex locations. If those of you that have been working with Business Central for a while may have seen demo data, and you know that we have different in the Cronus environment, different locations, silver, green, white, and so on, that are used to present and demonstrate and train on the various levels. And the white location has always been the most complex with all the features possible turned on. But many customers don't need all the complexity, but they would like to have zones and bins. And bins is the out of the box lowest level of physical storage, logical storage inside our warehouse. And then zones sit above that. Bins live in zones, and zones allow us to turn on and turn off various features. Well, with the full advanced warehousing, that got a little bit complicated, but now I can add zones and I can add bins, and then that opens up the next feature, which is to calculate bin replenishment. Even smaller customers that don't have high volume still want to keep their bins full of inventory that is ready to be picked and put out the door, as opposed to having it stored up in bulk storage, right? And then we have to wait until we see that the bin is empty. Be nice if we could have the system do that for us. And yes, that is something that is now available in less complex locations. And we'll see that in just a minute. And then some additional advanced features, bin capacity policies, warehouse class checks, and special equipment. I have to be honest, I know that those are available in the system. I'm not sure how many of us would actually use them. Bin capacity allows us to define that a bin has a certain volume. And when we start to put things into that, if the item unit of measure also has the volume, it will begin to complain when we start doing things like telling the system where, or telling the users where to put things. It will enforce that policy. Class check is used for if you've got frozen goods, for example, and you can only have a bin suggestion when you're putting things away into that frozen location. It'll complain if you don't. And then special equipment, if I'm generating a pick and I have to use a particular forklift or something that has a certain weight, it will enforce that as well. So those are advanced features, and they're there in less complex locations. But the first one is the zones and bins, and it's the most interesting to me. So again, if you're not familiar with our demo data in the Cronus database, the silver location is one that has always been around, and it does have bin codes. So these are my bin codes here in my bin list. It's been around for a while, but until this release, we could never turn on zones inside our location. So in this case, I've identified that I've got a zone that has bins that are in my bulk storage zones, and I have zones that are my pickable storage location. Without going into great detail, the bin ranking is what helps determine which bins get selected first on picking and some other activities. And this allows us to take advantage of those features. Now, where it's interesting to me is this. Here's a look at a small slice of my silver location. You'll note that in this bin, S102, I've got this item number, and I have a minimum quantity that I always want to keep in that pickable bin of 10. Right now, my current quantity is 5, and my maximum quantity is 50 pieces. These are all things that you can set up in advance. And also, this is my fixed bin for this item, which means that this item will always live in this bin, regardless of whether I have inventory or not, so that you have space available. The way I describe that is my wife always complains at me when I go to Costco and I bring back paper towels and the like, and then I have to move things around. She is like the organized person, and she would like to have an empty space. And when I bring the roll of paper towels in, the paper towels always goes there. And if it's empty, it's empty. Same concept here. This bin is going to be empty until I have this product back in stock. Great for your consistent product that you always have. Not so great, obviously, if you're moving things around. So it is a way that we can control that. But right now you can see I'm under stock in this. If an order comes through for 15 pieces, I'm gonna have to go pull some from bulk storage or something like that. Or in the past, I would not have known that I needed that because the silver location didn't allow for it. So now, though, I can do something that we call calculate bin replenishment. The calculate bin replenishment is a job that's going to look at all of my bins for a given within let me open up my filter window here. So within whatever I'm filtering here, in this case, I'm going to filter for my server location. I won't put any filters on my bin code at all or my item number. So I'm going to look through the environment in my bins, and I'm going to see everything that is below the minimum level. And I'm going to suggest an activity to get it filled back up. And that activity is called a movement. And so this movement here is, I ran the filter, and you can see that the movement then is, or the suggested movement is going to populate this movement worksheet screen. And so what you'll see here is in my bulk zone, which is in bin S401, I need to move some product, and I need to move it down to my pickable bin, which is the S102. And for those of you that were doing the math, I need to move a quantity of 45. And yes, I'm going to go there. This is whole roasted beans. For those of you that are bean counters, we got the quantity correct. Yep, I did it. Okay, so nice new feature, warehouse, it's rolling down into warehouse management. And the next release that's coming in October is going to have even more advanced warehouse features being rolled down into lesser locations. Okay, so some honorable mentions in the warehousing and the operations area. This is a minor annoyance. If you're on a sales order here, which we are, and the status of the sales order is open, many of you know that that means I can't do anything with that sales order. Now, often we leave the sales orders open until we're ready to have some activity. Maybe this was taken and it's not shipping for 2 weeks, but once the shipping time comes along, and it would show up in my roll center, it's time to create the warehouse shipment. For those of you not familiar with warehousing, a shipment document is a separate document that we use to ship from in more advanced warehousing locations. And if I went to go in and create the warehouse shipment here on an individual basis, and this was open, it would complain and say, hey, dummy, it's not open. Do you want me to open it? You'd say yes. You'd have to go click over here to release, and you'd have to click on the release button. Then you could go create the warehouse shipment. I can't tell you how many times I've done that, and it's just, muscle memory. Now, if I open status and I click on the warehouse shipment, it will release the order and create the shipment without having to go do those extra steps. So nice little feature. I want to create the shipment. I clicked on that button, so off it goes. So it's great. Okay, bin contents. This has annoyed me for years. Inside Nav and Business Central, there were 3 different bin content screen. What do I see in bin contents? I see, first of all, I'm filtering for my location. In this case, I'm working in my white location. These are all my bins that I had. These are the items that are in that bin. This is the unit of measure and so on. So I see a lot of information about my bin contents, but there were 3 different screens. And depending on where you got the bin contents from, you would see different data, but worse, you couldn't update certain data. It wasn't exposed. Now we've solved that. Everything I need for bin contents is all, regardless of how you get there, is all there. And through personalization, which you can see here, I have entered the personalizing mode. The other fields I can add. In this case, I didn't add all of them, but I can add these fields into this screen. So everything I want to know about my inventory in a advanced warehouse is available to me all from one screen. And in some cases, I can edit these. Some I can't. It just depends. Not everything here is editable, nor by design. But at least all the information is there, and I don't have to say, "Darn it, I went from the wrong location." So it's a nice feature and change. The next thing on the bin contents is I can define bin content in that screen, and defining bin content is what I referred to earlier, which is this item is always in this bin. That's what how we define bin content. I can set the item as being a default or fixed bin. I described the fixed bin. The default bin is slightly different. It's used for manufacturing, where the default bin is when I generate picks. I can select the unit of measure for a given item, and I can update the min max rather than, again, than having to poke around into different screens. So these are the important feature elements that we want to be able to operate inside our advanced warehousing. Item tracking. Not everyone uses item tracking, and sometimes we decide not to turn it on at the beginning of a project, but it's something that we know we're going to turn on later. Well, if I didn't turn it on at the beginning and I want to track things down at the warehouse level with lot and or serial numbers, that you can't do it once you have item ledger entries for an item. And so now you've got to create a new item or something like that. So what we can now do is we can turn on warehouse item tracking, which is this button right here, even though I'm not going to use it initially. So then if I start to use it in the warehouse later on, it's been enabled and I don't have to worry about that little problem. It doesn't sound like a big deal when you first look at this, but then when you decide 6 months after you've gone live or 6 months later when something changes and you want to turn it on, it is a big pain to not be able to go to have to go back and do all the corrections, zero out all your inventory and so on. So this allows us to correct that mistake from the beginning. So if you're not sure, turn it on. If you are 100% sure you want it, then of course have that turned on. But if you definitely will not need it, then don't. But it's a nice way to recover. So okay, so that's it from the operations perspective. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. And Jeff, it's yours.
All right, thanks, Jim. Let's see. I guess I missed my intro spot. I wasn't a presenter, although I was on the call. I have, for those of you that don't know me, I am a pre-sales resource here at Innovia, and I've been here 15 years, and that's how long I've been using NAV or BC. So I'm going to take you through. I have just two sections today. The first is user experience, and then we're going to go into some of the external functionality using Business Central with some of the other Office 365 apps, particularly Power Automate and Power Apps. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see. And so I will take us through the just a few of my favorite features from this release. First of all, I think we might have touched on it, or you've seen it in some of the screen shares from Jim, but the personalize all table fields available. So there was a limitation prior to this release wave that when you went into personalize, you didn't have access to all of the fields that were associated with the table on the page that you were attempting to personalize. Microsoft has unlocked that through personalization and designer so that you can add any field that's associated with that table. So for those of you who like to nose around and maybe find some columns to add to reports that are helpful that you couldn't initially do, once you are on this release wave, make sure that you check out the personalization and designer functionality so that to see all of those tables or all of those fields rather associated with that table. The next part that I'm going to talk about is something that's pretty minor, but to certain users, it is a big deal. The drag and drop upload. So attaching a document no longer requires you go through clicking the link on attach files and then going through a selector. You can simply use the new attachment window where you can drag that. Now, on one hand, this is a minor tweak, but it actually exposes some of the work that Microsoft has been doing for this release wave in terms of making the information, specifically things like images and document attachments. Not only does it make it easier within the application, but as we get to the Power Apps section of this, you'll see that they have also added some functionality so that it's easier to attach these types of images and other file types to the connector so that if you're going to send something through to Teams or through to an email, you can actually pull some of these attachments that you've already included in your database. So the drag and drop upload dialog box is is one of my favorites in demos, showing how easy it is to keep things, or I guess to keep information based on customer records, vendors, etc., in a place where it's easily accessed, whether that's on the customer or vendor card, or if it's related to a specific transaction. Another thing that is nice from a usability standpoint are the key tips, and people liked this functionality a lot in the nav and the desktop client that existed prior. Being able to navigate using your keyboard with only minor mouse inputs. There are certainly roles within organizations that require that sort of speed and quickness and so now key tips are available by just hitting the Alt key in Business Central, and those key tips change obviously depending on what page you're at, but they're available on every page within the system. So another UI improvement. Right. Another one that I use frequently, because in my demo environment I make lots of mistakes, is the actionable error messages. So whether it's the ability to copy details from the error message itself, and not having to do a screen cap or try to find those on your own, or even, I guess, better, the addition of the actions within the error. So if you've got an issue where, like in this example, you've got an order with lines locked because you're trying to reopen that order, it's got a button there to take you to the fix right away. And that has been something that has been long requested by lots of users. So another one of my favorites. And from here, I'm going to jump into the Power Platform updates, and that's I think in terms of the way that I use Business Central, a really exciting part of this release as Microsoft continues to add functionality to the app and make it easier. So first of all, there are more Power Automate templates, and here these are, I just did a screen grab of the Business Central templates that exist, and I think we're approaching 50. There might be 44 here, but you've got lots of ways to interact with Power Automate and via pre-built templates. So we're continuing. We see the Microsoft moving away from the built-in workflows within Business Central and going to a more standardized tool through Power Automate. So they continue to add templates to this that make it easier to utilize Power Automate within your Business Central environment. Along the lines of Power Automate, we also have the ability to create the flows in Power Automate and then leverage them within Business Central. So you'll see the Power Automate on the left that's been created externally in Power Automate, and then we're able to leverage that through the action bar within Business Central itself. So again, this might not seem revolutionary to certain technical users, but for users who aren't comfortable having to leave the screens that they're familiar with to go to a different screen and kick off an automation or respond to it, being able to initiate those within BC is another big win for users. Finally, there's some advancement or enhancements to approvals. So being able to define the workflows to selected Business Central environments right down to the company level is something that is new with the connector. and being able to approve documents using mobile devices, and then also using Teams. It's not just an email. And then the nice thing about the approvals outside of the built-in workflows, it's much easier to make a flexible chain of approvers along with additional inputs. So you just get back to notable mentions, and then I'm just going to show you a few quick examples before we wrap up for questions. So the Power Automate, as I mentioned, support for document attachments, as well as media and image support for the connectors. So that was, going back to that drag and drop functionality. The system now has the ability to push these sorts of things around, whether it's leaving the system for Power Automate or any external system. And last point on here, the business events to notify and trigger external systems is an improvement to the connector. So any sort of business event that you define within Business Central can now be used as a trigger to do other things. And with that, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to switch to this screen and just show you here. I've got my a couple flows Power Automate set up in my demo environment. Here I've got a new sales order that's going to generate a Teams notification. One thing I wanted to mention with this is that we now have the ability to get some AI help with editing. So there's a button here for edit with Copilot. I will click on that just to give you a feel for what that looks like. In this case, I've got a pretty simple flow set up, but you can see all I need to do is type. If I want some help, let's say that I want to have a secondary step added to this besides posting, I can ask Copilot here how to do that, and it's going to make the suggestions as well as put the code right in here. So I don't need to, I guess I should say the bar is getting lower and lower in terms of the amount of technical expertise you need to create these, and it's going more and more to the no code solution, from the low code, no code, right down to no code. So with tools like with Copilot. So in this one, the other thing that I wanted to mention about this Power Automate flow that I have is that I'm using it to generate a Teams notification to a shipping user that doesn't have a Business Central license assigned to them. So in this case, anytime I get a sales order released, I want to just send that to the shipping user. Maybe I have a shipping group here that's multiple shipping users within my environment, and I can do it the same to that Teams channel as well as an individual. But you can see, even though the shipping user doesn't have a link to the or doesn't have a license to Business Central, they still have the ability to see data as it relates to them. So they can pull out, like, okay, sales order number 1759. If I want to get into the details, they can do that, and they can retrieve that information without a Business Central license. So that is another thing that is pretty cool about this release. The next, I'm going to just take you into, I've got some Power Apps here. And specifically what we did, I had a customer ask that, hey, we want to see a signature capture app, and we want something really basic that can run on the phone. Here I'm just using the emulator here. I can search, let's say I've got a delivery guy that is going to make a delivery, and all we're going to do is we want him to be able to look up from his order sheet, and he's going to ask the customer to sign something and submit it. And so, it's really easy to leverage these tools. Here I've got within my Business Central environment, I've got the sales order. If I leave this page, you'll see there's a customer signature box right here. If I leave this page and come back, it's now loaded my signature there. It's cleared off of the app. So this was something that I had Rick help me do, Rick Faulkner from Innovia, and it took him less than an hour. I said, when I first made the request to him, I said, I forgot that I needed a search function on there. So he added that. It's a Canvas app, but really easy ways to interact with the system, and again, a virtual, no code solution to add little parts that used to be somewhat of a heavy lift. So that was just an example of a Power App that I'm showing in my demo environment. I will go back to my PowerPoint here, and let's see. So as Jim mentioned, there is a place for you to, and I'll just show this screen rather than going back to PowerPoint, where you can go. The URL is AKA-MS or AKA-MS dot Business Central Ideas, and that will take you to this where you can suggest a new idea. We like to show that our own Kevin Fonz is the top author here with 128 ideas submitted, and 23 of those implemented. So Kevin has definitely put his fingerprints on Business Central. I think that the screen capture we have of this from our presentation at the customer conference just a few months ago indicates that Kevin has already got 2 more ideas implemented, as well as about 10 more ideas submitted. So my dad always said the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I don't know if that's the right way to look at Kevin's input, but Kevin doesn't have any special powers just because he is a partner. I would say that Microsoft listens to customers at least as much as partners, if not more. So if you are, if there are things that you constantly see that you want to, that are challenges within Business Central, or just improvements in the way that it could align with your business, the more you suggest, the better chance you have of everyone benefiting from that. So with that, I will, let's see, go back to my PowerPoint. And at this point, I think we are open to any questions. I see that that Holly has been helping to answer some in the chat. Are there any other questions that we want to address, Jim or Holly?
Jeff, if I can for just a sec, I'm going to take it. And a user, thanks Niels, pointed something out to me. I don't know if this is a feature that was new or if I missed it, but I mentioned in the analysis views that the push to Excel would be a nice thing to have. I don't know if it was not there when I first saw this released or if it's there now, but there is. So if I right click anywhere in the body here, you'll see there's an export, and sure enough, there is an export to Excel or CSV. So that is now there. Maybe it was there from the very beginning and I just missed it, but that is, we can take that off the list. And again, thanks, Niels, for pointing that out.
Awesome. Yes. All right. I think that, let me just,
let's see from the beginning. Let's see, questions. Yeah, I think I won that I answered.
All right. So just a quick reminder, novia.com/workshops or /events to stay up to date on our training workshops, as well as webinars just like these. If you want to hear more, Steve and I do the Innovia Conversation podcast, and you can find us on all of the major podcast platforms if you can't get enough of Business Central. And I think that is it. So thank you all. We've got 1 minute. Thank you all for joining us. Angie, anything to wrap up with, or are we good?
I believe you took over, so I think that we have everything all covered. I will be sending the recording, and if anyone wants the transcript, I'll include that on the email and the questions with some of the images that Holly included as well. I'll have that on there too. So I'll be working on that next, so look for that in the morning. And if anybody has any additional questions for the Innovia team, feel free to reach out to us at innovia.com, or you can contact your specific customer success manager individually. And other than that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you for Jeff, Jim, and Holly for presenting. And we will see you soon on another Innovia webinar. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.